Everyone, Patrick CK here. It's become apparent that it might be a while before I can finish building my next rig. But that didn't stop me from picking up some components anyway. And the Fractal Design Define 7 in stone gray was at the top of that list. At the onset, it's safe to say that this is a premium case for many reasons. And typically the premium moniker will command a hefty price, and the Define 7 does, at the normal MSRP of $159. But if you keep an eye out and are patient, you can get one for almost half of that. I was able to pick one up on Newegg for just 89 bucks. Let's see why that's a steal for this case. First, let's start with why I chose this case for my next rig. A couple years ago, I picked up a Define R3 for the workstation at my day job. Partly because I had a subdued design that fits perfectly in my office, partly because it featured all-around sound dampening, which again, great for an office setting, but mostly because I wasn't paying for it. When I built that workstation, I fell in love with the case. It was easy to work in, had a ton of room in front and behind the motherboard, and came with a horde of accessories. It ran practically silent. Only when you open the front panel do you even hear any fan noise. I was hoping to get all that and more with its bigger and newer brother. I like to think I did. There's so much to talk about that I'm going to break this review into two videos. This one will be a feature overview with the pros and cons. The second one will be all about how to customize this case, like switching which side the door opens, or how to set up the internals for server configuration, and more. In the box, we get two other boxes, the case and the largest accessories pack I've ever seen. We'll open that one later. Looking at the case, we find the same subtle fractal design styling as the R3. I love the look of the brushed aluminum finish on the front and the smooth matte finish everywhere else. And this stone gray color pushes all the right buttons. The only issue is that this thing is a fingerprint magnet, which takes a ton of work to keep spotless. I opted for a solid side panel. I wanted this panel for soundproofing and because I will never see the side of the case anyway. But of course, if you want to see your colorful guts, you can select from 3 tempered glass panel styles: clear, slightly tinted, or dark tinted. Even though everything around the front looks solid, there are these massive vents on both sides which allow for all the airflow you'll need. On top we get a host of I/O, starting with separate headphone microphone jacks, a USB Type-C 3.1 Gen 2 allowing for speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. In the center, a simple but solid power button, followed by 2 USB 2.0 ports and 2 USB 3.0 ports. A nice assortment of I/O for most everyday equipment. The rest of the top panel has some hidden surprises that we'll see momentarily. Looking around, we get that nice flat finish even on the back, but in black. Here we find 7 expansion slots with vertical slots to show off a graphics card if you opt for a glass side panel. There really isn't a whole lot to see on the outside, and that's how I'd like it, especially compared to some of the other stuff out there today. Before we crack this thing open, let's take a look at what's behind the front panel. Opening the magnetic latch, we find the first of many examples of the sound dampening employed in the Define 7, and the first of the massive removable air filters. Pull at the tab at the top and it unhinges towards you. It's so easy, there is no excuse for not keeping this filter clean. After we remove the filter, we find 2 of the 3 included Dynamic X2 GP14 140mm fans. Getting 3 of these fans included is a huge plus. The X2 GP14s are no throwaway fans like the junk you get in cheap cases. They are rated for up to 100,000 hours of runtime thanks to their long life sleeve bearings. They produce less than 19 decibels of noise at 1000 RPM and can push 68 cubic feet of air per minute, and you get 3 of them, 2 here in the front and 1 in the back. At the bottom, you'll find another filter that's the full length of the case. It can be a little tricky to work with, but again, there's no reason not to keep this clean. I want to take a moment and admire these hinges. They feature this dual hinge action. Not only does it allow the panel to swing out, but also pushes the panel forward at the same time, so that when it's completely opened, it's flush with the side of the case. This is especially helpful if the case is sitting against a wall. Now let's pop off the side panel. There are none of the typical thumb screws here. Instead, just pull on this tab on the back and the whole panel pops off in one fluid motion. This is a hefty panel, mostly because of the thick layer of sound dampening material on the inside, which shows the emphasis Fractal put on making this case run silent. The panel by itself weighs a few pounds, which contributes to the overall weight of the Define 7, which is considerable at almost 30 pounds. Inside we find a spacious compartment for everything you'll need. At the bottom is a full-length power supply shroud that also houses the drive cage that we'll see later. There are numerous cable management cutouts on the motherboard tray and on top of the power supply shroud, each one with a rubber grommet. What shows the thoroughness of Fractal's engineering here is that even when you remove the rubber grommet, the metal edges are rolled so not to fray any cables on accident. That's a nice touch that most people won't ever see. With so much space, there's room for motherboards from ITX up to extended ATX, and graphics cards up to 490mm in the default open layout. There are multiple configs you can set up for the internals, from leaving it open to installing a full height hard drive cage. You can almost completely disassemble this case with basic tools. Depending on the config you go with, there's room for two 360mm radiators, one in the front and one on top. Or if you solely prefer the power of wind, you can load up to 9 140mm fans. Of course, you can do any combination of the two. I'll be going over how to actually disassemble and configure the internals in different ways as part of the next video. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Some of the best features of this case can be found behind the motherboard tray. Popping off the other side panel is identical as the first, and again we find the same solid and heavily sound dampened panel. The first thing that stands out are the Velcro cable management straps in the middle and running along the edges. Not only are there straps, but also segmented channels to help easily organize cables. There are still dozens of standard loops where you can attach more Velcro straps, zip ties, or twist ties. At the bottom is a hideaway panel that we can pop off to get under the power supply shroud. Here we have a spot for a full-size ATX power supply and plenty of room to tuck away extra cables. We also find all of our front I/O cables. On the other end is the included hard drive cage that can hold two 3.5 or 2.5 inch drives. As mentioned, we can reconfigure the inside to add up to 14 full-size hard drives in the server build configuration, and an additional 4 2.5 inch SSDs, 2 behind the motherboard tray and 2 on top of the PSU shroud. In total, there's space for 18 drives, which is absolutely insane and amazing at the same time. Although you will need to pay for more trays and brackets to get all 18 mounted properly. One thing that's oddly left out of Fractal's marketing for this case is the Nexus Plus 2 fan hub, which is tucked away at the top of the case. This fan hub has support for 6 standard 3-pin fans and 3 4-pin PWM fans. You can even plug in your CPU fan since it has a CPU fan header to connect to your motherboard, and uses a SATA power connector to power everything hooked up. The position of the hub also helps you segment and manage fan cables away from everything else. Another nice, thoughtful design choice. So that's it for all the major features. There are still a ton of little details about this case. Let's take a quick look at the accessories box. The first thing we'll find is a different top panel. If you want to install a radiator on the top position, this panel will allow for maximum airflow. Underneath the panel is a box full of hardware, including different types of mounting screws, hard drive vibration dampeners, cable ties, and more. Surrounding the hardware box are 4 extra drive sleds, bringing the total included to 6. Even though the next video will have most of the details on how to customize this case, we'll swap out the top panel now just to show how easy it is. All you have to do is pop off the original top panel and snap in the new one. You'll notice there's already a filter installed on top, whether you swap out the panel or not. It's that simple. I'm really excited to start working in this case, even if I don't get the rest of the parts I need for another few months. If you can hold out for a sale, it's absolutely worth getting any version of this case for yourself. That's it for this part of the review. If you enjoyed this content, leave a like and share so others can find it in the future. Until next time, this has been Patrick CK. Goodbye.